Writing a grant can feel like trying to put together a giant puzzle, one where every piece has a specific place, and if even one is missing, the whole thing falls apart. Today, we are going to be piecing together my 7-step process for writing a winning grant. Each piece is essential, and together they create the full picture of a grant proposal that gets results. So let's dive in and start putting those pieces together. Follow your North Star, the funding guidelines. Every grant has a North Star, the funding guidelines. These are your instructions. They're the roadmap on how you're going to build a proposal that fits with what the funder wants. You're going to download these guidelines and print a hard copy, I know, coming from a millennial, so you can mark them up. And it might sound old school, but it is the best way to catch details that for some reason it's very hard to see when we're reading it on the computer. So you're going to read through these guidelines really carefully, take a break, go eat a cookie, have some coffee, whatever, and then dive back in, highlighting keywords and instructions. The key here is to locate the specific sections that are going to tell you what the funder is looking for. And if you're really lucky, like federal grants have this, you're gonna get the scoring criteria. And if the criteria is not provided, I need you to basically read between the lines and visit the funder's website, and you're really gonna get a better sense of their priorities. The clearer you are on these guidelines, the easier it is to structure your proposal for maximum impact. Prepare your narrative skeleton. Basically, what we're talking about when I say a skeleton, it's not looking at a blank page. That can be intimidating. Instead, start by creating an outline, which is what I call the bones, the skeleton, using the exact headers from the funder's prompts. You're going to type out each narrative question and the scoring criteria, and you're going to paste that into a blank document. This is your skeleton. Think of it as your cheat sheet that tells you exactly what's needed. Then you're just going to start bullet pointing under each section with rough ideas on how you're going to answer each question. Do not start writing full sentences. And I know it is tempting, but do not do that yet, okay? We got a ways to go before we get there. Bullet points are all you need to help brainstorm without getting bogged down. If there's a prompt on a question on project management experience, for example, this is where you're going to add your notes on the team's skills and projects and achievements that you're going to want to include. And once this skeleton is complete, you now know what information you have and which areas you need to gather, which leads us to, I have to figure out how this goes together. Shoot, that doesn't seem right. Must be at the bottom. How did this go? What? No, that's right. Okay. Hosting an outstanding kickoff meeting. The kickoff is very crucial. This is where we're bringing together everybody involved in the project to plan and prepare. And trust me, the amount of support you get during the writing process depends a lot on how well you run this meeting. I like to show appreciation by bringing treats like cookies or lunch to create that positive vibe. Definitely make sure you send an agenda ahead of time. You're going to link out the narrative skeleton that you just created so everyone has a clear idea of what's needed in the grant proposal. And then you're going to use this meeting just discuss what is needed, who's doing what, the responsibilities, timeline. You don't want to find out that the grant is due. The person that needs to sign off on it is on vacation that week. We want to know that now. This is a really important first step in just orienting for the success of your project. That leads us then to step 4, is finishing the budget before we talk about writing the narrative, because the budget is where so many people get stuck, and yet it is one of the most critical pieces of your puzzle. You need a solid cost estimate for the project as soon as possible because it impacts literally every other piece of your application. For example, if the funder wants a 50% match from your organization, you need the total project cost before you can even calculate the match. Or most of the time, they also want a narrative accompanying the budget, explaining how did you arrive at those numbers and show the funder that these costs are reasonable. And a well thought out budget strengthens your proposal a ton because you're showing the funders that you know exactly how you're going to use their money, you're using it wisely, it's just well thought out. Lucky for you, I have a bomb free budget template that is actually built off of what a federal grant budget template will use, and you can go download that. It's part of my free grant writing class. And I know that if you're like me, you're always freaked out by numbers, you're like, yeah, anything but the budget, I'm a writing girl. I want you to know that once you've kind of faced the dragon, it's not that bad, and you're going to be really empowered by knowing how to put a great budget together. Writing your grant narrative. Now that you've gathered everything, it's time to dive into writing. This is where you're telling the story of your project, the problem it solves, and why it is deserving of funding. My book, How to Write a Grant, Become a Grant Writing Unicorn, had advice that said your first draft within 8 to 10 business days. That was assuming a federal grant because obviously those grants are behemoths, 15, 20-page narratives. But here's the thing. Now we have this thing called AI, and you can get a great first draft building a custom GPT that is trained on your organization and the funder. You can get 80% of the way towards an epic first draft in minutes. Now, how do you do that? You do it by setting up the context. You've got fundee context and you have funder context. The fundee is you. To get a really great first draft, you need funder context as well. On the grant agency, it's basically making the grant award. A word of caution, ChatGPT hallucinates and it can't focus and it makes up things. For that reason, we're big fans of Perplexity, which is way better than Google. It's going to be the wave of the future, and it's grounded always in real data and research. When you learn how to piece together multiple AI tools like your customGPT for writing, Perplexity for research, design tools for your graphics, that's when you really get to use AI like a pro with writing drafts incredibly fast and efficiently. If you want to learn more about this, that's a separate video, but I have an AI bestie tool linked up below so you can learn more about it. You don't have to take 8 to 10 business days to write a narrative anymore, my heavens. It's kind of crazy to think how much that's changed in a short amount of time. Step 6 is gathering your attachments. I need you to go to the very top of the process here when we did our kickoff meeting. You're gathering all of these attachments that they're requiring to submit your proposal. These are often just as important as the narrative itself, and they can take a really long time to get your hands on. If you need a resolution to submit, heck, that can take 2 months to get your hands on. Here's what I want you to focus on primarily: letters of support. These letters can be a really powerful endorsement from community leaders and partners or stakeholders who are really invested in your project's success. And strong letters show funders that your project has broad support, that you're collaborating with others to achieve lasting impact, all of that. And then remember, I was just talking about resolutions or authorizations. Some funders require these formal resolutions to come through that demonstrate your organization's committed, especially when you need to commit money. Just know that this stuff takes time to get signed and all of that. Gotta prepare for that. And proof of nonprofit status and financials is another common thing you can expect to submit, maybe like your IRS determination letter, a key financial statements, that sort of thing. And so again, we have to make sure we have that information up to date, it's readily accessible, and it's not bogging you down. Other required documents is gonna really vary, but often that might be like an organizational chart or resumes for key staff or whatever. You are reviewing the funding guidelines carefully, our Northstar. You've made sure that you've included everything that the funder requires. Again, attachments might seem like they're just these smaller details, but you miss one attachment and you could jeopardize your entire application. That's why I'm a real big fangirl of having a project management system in place. We use Asana, we love it, have all the templates for you to use it as well, but that just helps you not forgetting something simple. Now we're at the point we're winding to the finish line where we take the time to gather, organize, and double check all of our work, bringing us to step 7. Have an independent review and submit early. What do I mean by an independent review? When you're in the thick of writing a grant, it is really easy to overlook something, or you might think it's clear because like you're too entrenched, right? You're in the forest. You need to find someone who hasn't been involved in the writing process to give you kind of an entire top to down fresh read on the proposal. This can be a coworker, a friend, even a fellow grant writer. I recently did this. I did a grant review on a grant for the Museum for America grant program. I matched my local hometown museum with 2 of the grant writers inside the Global Grant Writing Collective, and then I was their QCer, like I reviewed it. And because I wasn't in the thick of writing that, I saw things from this like 50,000 point view and caught some things that were confusing and was like, go more courageously in this section of your narrative. And I just challenged the writer to be a little bit more bold. And then the final proposal was just like way, way, way better. It was incredible to see what's possible when you're not trying to do this all by yourself. Then we got to submit our application a day, preferably 2 days, if not even like a week early, I'm telling you, to avoid any last minute glitches. And let me assure you, those glitches can happen, especially if you're dealing with the grants.gov system. This allows you to make sure your application's polished and it's going in, you're feeling good, and also it's just good for your nervous system. Submitting things like down to the wire, you'll burn out. We have completed the grant. We've pressed submit. And we have the 7, oops, my unicorn horn fell, essential puzzle pieces of winning a grant, putting them all together so that you have a strong, organized, and persuasive proposal that funders are gonna love. Then of course is the hurry up and wait part where you just find out, okay, is it funded or not? And that can take months, but just hang tight, it'll come. This is what's gonna turn you into a grant writing unicorn. You know, I've been teaching for 7 years and I wanna keep things fresh for both of us. So I wanna know, how do you feel about this unicorn puzzle piece analogy? My nanny designed this. She's so artistic and talented. If you love this unicorn, give her a shout out in the comments and I'll make sure that she sees it.